You ever have those days, or maybe weeks, where you just feel like you're running on fumes? Like you're constantly looking for something outside yourself to fill you up? Well, today we're going to dig into a really powerful metaphor that might just change the way you think about your own energy. We're talking about two fundamental ways of living. Are you a solar panel, or are you a black hole?
So, let's just cut right to the chase. I want you to think about this for a second. When you wake up, when your feet hit the floor, are you generating your own energy from within, or is the first thing you do look for something to consume, something to plug into, just to get yourself going?
And that feeling, that core difference, it really boils down to a choice between two very different paths. On one hand, you've got what we're going to call infinite energy. This is all about generating from within. And on the other hand, well, that's infinite lust, and that's all about consuming from the outside.
All right, so let's tackle this first one, the path of infinite lust. And look, it sounds kind of seductive, right? But it's also really dangerous. And we're not just talking about physical desire here. No, this is a whole philosophy, a way of life that's about trying to consume everything without ever feeling satisfied.
So how does this even work? Well, this whole mindset is basically trying to cheat a really well-known concept in psychology called the hedonic treadmill. You've probably heard of it. It's this idea that no matter what happens, good or bad, we tend to return to our own personal baseline of happiness. You win the lottery, you feel amazing for a while, then you're back to baseline. The infinite lust philosophy is basically the belief that if you just run fast enough on that treadmill, you can stay at the peak forever.
And this whole thing, it kind of operates on four basic principles, or laws, if you will. First, you're cranking that treadmill up to max speed, always chasing that feeling you got the very first time. Second, it becomes this universal hunger, not just for one thing, but for everything. More power, more experiences, just more. Third, you get hooked on what scientists call the seeker circuit. This is fascinating. It means you're addicted to the chase, not actually getting the thing you're chasing. And finally, all of this leads you to the philosophy of the void. It's like you're desperately trying to fill up a bucket, but there's a giant hole in the bucket.
So what's the big takeaway here? Infinite lust isn't a philosophy of abundance. It's a philosophy of scarcity. It's a race. A race against that feeling of emptiness, the void. The idea is that if you just move fast enough, if you consume enough, you'll never have to stop and realize there's nothing really there.
And the risk, man, the risk is huge. It's what you might call the rock star arc. You know the story, right? The tragic hero. Their life is this massive, explosive, cinematic blaze of glory. But the crash, it's pretty much always coming. Your brain literally starts to burn out its receptors. Normal things don't bring you joy anymore. And you find yourself needing more and more extreme things just to feel, well, not bored.
Okay, so that's the path of consumption, the black hole. But what's the other side of the coin? Let's shift gears and talk about the alternative, the power of infinite energy. And this is a totally different way of looking at everything. The absolute core idea here is so simple, but it's a real game changer. Stop being a battery. Just think about it. A battery has a limited charge, right? It runs down, and then you have to plug it into something else to get more power. This mindset says, nope, that's the wrong model.
So if you're not a battery, what are you? You're a solar panel. A solar panel doesn't store a finite amount of energy. It generates it, constantly, as long as it's aligned with its source. This is what we're talking about, a mindset where your life, your passion, your work, it all creates more energy than it uses. You actually get charged up by the things you do instead of being drained by them. Huge difference.
So what does this actually feel like in real life? Well, it's that feeling of total frictionless flow. You know, when you stop trying so hard and you just start doing, it's living in a way where you're not wasting energy on petty stuff like gossip or resentment. It's about radical alignment, where what you do, what you say, and what you want are all pointing in the exact same direction. You're not fighting yourself anymore. You're creating your own momentum, your own drive from the inside.
Now this all sounds amazing, but you got to be careful. There's a dark side to this too. If you don't manage it, it can lead to what's called the God mode delusion. It can actually look a lot like hypomania. You feel totally invincible, you barely need to sleep, you're just going. And that boundless energy is incredible, but if you don't learn how to contain it, you can completely burn out your own nervous system.
All right, so we've looked at both sides, the consumer and the generator, the black hole and the solar panel. So let's put them head to head. What's the final verdict here? Ghost versus God.
This table really nails the difference. Think about the metaphors. Infinite lust is a wildfire. It's spectacular, it's intense, it's exciting, but it consumes everything and then it's gone. Infinite energy, That's a nuclear reactor. It's contained, it's stable, and it produces an almost unimaginable amount of power. So one path leaves you feeling hungry all the time, basically a ghost chasing things. The other brings peace and power. It makes you the master of your own world.
And at the end of the day, the path of lust, the wildfire path, it really comes down to one big confusion. It's mistaking intensity for aliveness. We chase these massive highs, these crazy intense moments, thinking that's what it means to be alive. But real, sustainable aliveness, that comes from somewhere else entirely.
So it all boils down to this single question. Both paths are fueled by a kind of fire, right? But one is a fire that burns everything down, a fire that consumes. The other is a fire that generates light and warmth, a fire that creates. And the only question you have to ask yourself is, which fire are you feeding?